Hello again. How are you? Today we're doing another segment of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, and we're doing verses 49 to 52. Leave all your harmful karma far behind by becoming united to enlightenment. This is called Buddha Yoga, conqueror of the world. Try to surrender to this consciousness. Do not try to hold on to false desires for that which is unreal. One who is in consciousness can be freed, even in this very life, from concern about all good or bad results. Thus, for the sake of being united, follow this art of yoga in all you do. Great mystics can give up all karma and its consequences by entering this state of consciousness. They are freed from the restrictions of birth and death and reach a state that is beyond any suffering. When your consciousness takes you beyond the dark forest of illusion, then you will no longer need to rely on seeking knowledge or on what you already think you know. So, looking at these 4 verses, there's a few things first I think we have to kind of establish as terminology. First of all, there's karma. In the West, people have some odd ideas about what karma is. I mean, I think in modern Hinduism and Buddhism, people have some odd ideas. But let's look at it at its very root. Karma means cause and effect. You may remember from the last video that I was talking about how if a person is only on that kind of horizontal line of seeing things not through the vast field of the eternal, but only through the temporal, through time, they have this perception not of being profound in the moment, but of looking forward or looking back and trying to get something or trying to keep something or trying to get something back or not wanting to lose things. And so karma is linked to desire, right? Both Hinduism and Buddhism use the term in that sense. And why it's linked to desire is because karma means the cause and effect that happens through lust of result. When you're trying to get something, when you're attached to something, then you're generating karma, okay? You're creating consequences. Now, this is not a moral force. It's not a conscious moral force in the universe. It's not, people especially who have been raised in exoteric and outer mainstream religious environments sometimes get this idea that what karma means is that if you're a good person, then good things will happen to you if you try really hard to be good. If you're a bad person, then bad things are going to happen to you sooner or later, right? But karma doesn't actually work that way. What karma says is absolutely everything you do generates consequences, right? So if you're trying really hard, if you have a really strong desire to be good, it generates exactly as much karma as if you're trying really hard to be bad. And in both cases, the lack of consciousness means that you can't actually know what is going to happen. You don't have control, and you're being driven around in little circles in the wheel of samsara, in the wheel of illusion, chasing your own tail, you could say, in that wheel, that image of the Ouroboros, right? The snake that's eating its own tail. You're chasing around for that, and you're never aware of it, right? And so there are always consequences. You could be trying to do good, but if you're not doing good with a vast conscious perspective, if you're not rooted in the moment, then you can't actually predict the outcome of your actions. You might be trying to do something good and something bad might happen. You might be trying to do something good and something good will happen as a consequence, right? But it won't be something that you'll have a sense of control over. You won't, you can't predict what's going to happen later. You can only be conscious in the here and now. So karma isn't some kind of system of divine punishment and reward, right? That's very important. But why karma is an issue in mysticism is because as long as you are unconscious, as long as you're being guided by these programs to chase after your own tail, you are going to inevitably keep building this cycle of cause and effect that keeps you trapped. The next thing is the Buddha Yoga that is mentioned here. Now, this isn't obviously in reference to the Buddha, who hadn't been born yet when the Bhagavad Gita was recited. So we're not talking about Buddhism here, but we're using Buddha as the word meaning awakening. So this is the yoga of awakening, right? This is the yoga of enlightenment. That's what Krishna means when he says the Buddha Yoga. If you surrender to consciousness, you can achieve it. Right? So how do you get to that state? What do you do? How is the Buddha Yoga achieved? Well, these 4 verses are actually talking about 4 important points in the Buddha Yoga. Okay. Let me try to explain a little bit more here contextually about the question of karma, right? Karma is connected to the concept of ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean a lack of knowledge in this case, because as we've already established in this chapter, Krishna is very clear that trying to get just an intellectual route to enlightenment is folly, right? That having a great knowledge of stuff is not going to get you there, right? Nor is being able to perform technically correct ritual or something like that. You know, not being a proper religious person or being a smart guy is not going to do it, right? So the ignorance we're talking about here is that lack of connection to consciousness, to the eternal, right? So imagine that you're inside a room that's closed. It has no windows. It has nothing you can see through. You can't tell if outside today if it's sunny or if it's dark, if it's raining or if there are clear skies, right? Now you could, in your head, make all kind of speculations, right? You could have a whole bunch of fantasies about one thing or the other, right? You could guess, basically. Now your guess might be wrong, right? You might think, oh, it's probably raining outside, and it actually isn't. Or it might be right. You might think, oh, it's probably raining outside, and it is raining outside. But in fact, either way, you're still just engaging in an illusion. You're engaging in a fantasy. Because whether or not you're technically right, whether you guessed right or not, you don't actually know, right? If you happen to be correct, it was purely by coincidence, okay? Now, the moment you actually open the door and look outside, then you don't have to guess, right? Then there is no element of thinking through it that is necessary. So as soon as you can experience it, then faith or deduction, none of those things are necessary. Instead, you have certainty, right? As soon as you open the door, you'll know if it's sunny or if it's dark, if it's raining or if there are clear skies, if it's hot or if it's cold, right? And so likewise, in your spiritual path, right, you generate karma because you are chasing after these ideas, these notions that you've generated. You think it's sunny, so you're looking, you know, you're planning for a sunny day, or you think it's raining and you're grabbing an umbrella, right? But if you let yourself be united, that's yoga, right, to awareness, then you can see reality in the moment for what it really is. Then you don't need to work out intellectual answers or your own personal guesswork about what awareness is, about what meditation is, about what your true nature is, about what enlightenment is, right? Instead, you can experience these by observing what is real, and there's certainty, not faith, right? So in verse 49, you're told first then, leave your harmful karma behind by becoming united to enlightenment, and that this is the Buddha Yoga. That you have to surrender to this consciousness. You have to put aside this chasing after of false desires for that which is unreal, right? That even if your direction is good. If you're driving blind essentially and you're just being really lucky with your guesses, then sooner or later there's going to be a problem, right? So instead you have to, it requires a letting go, right? Because part of what you want is this idea that you're in control. And making speculation about things lets you have a false sense of control. So surrendering to consciousness, that's why it's a surrender. It's because you have to let go of your own ego, of your own perception that you can work it out somehow, right? The second verse, verse 50, it says, one who is in consciousness can be freed, even in this very life, from concern about good or bad results, right? So this is the second thing here. You don't hold on to desires. You don't have concern about good or bad results. And you can achieve this. This isn't about something where if you're a good person, you go to heaven later on. You can achieve this in this very lifetime, right? He means this both in the sense that you can achieve enlightenment at any time. That it isn't something that is only for special people, or that you're going to have to wait and be patient until after you're dead or until future lifetimes. It is possible to do it today, right? You just have to actually surrender, which is the tricky part. But it can happen, right? And the way to make it happen, or the way to get towards making it happen, is following this art of yoga in all that you do, by freeing your consciousness, right? Opening yourself in consciousness to a liberation from the lust of result, right? Great mystics can give up all karma and its consequences by entering into a state of consciousness. So first you have to work at this Buddha yoga of liberating yourself from the lust of result. And once you do this, you are beyond karma. And this is the great benefit of the mystic, is that you're no longer trapped in this cycle of cause and effect. Now, of course, things still happen to you, but you're no longer chasing your own tail. Instead, you're able to approach all things within this state of consciousness, within reality. And it means that you're not just being driven around by it, right? You're instead experiencing the here and now eternally. It's a state that is beyond the restrictions of birth and death, not because you're now immortal, just like it's a state beyond suffering, not in the sense that if you stub your toe, it won't hurt, but in the sense that you are now no longer bound to reaction, to desire, or to regret. And therefore, you approach all these things in a completely different way, in a way that is total, that is completely engaged with them. And then the last verse talks about your consciousness taking you beyond the forest of illusion. So once you start developing an ability to be present in the moment, to be in that state of consciousness, and to be free of the lust of result, the more you do this, the less grounded you are in a fantasy world of your own desires, of your own wanting to rush forward or go back or hold on or whatever. Instead, you're not trapped in what you think you know. You are instead beginning to experience this much vaster field of being where you are. So then you can see reality as it truly is. That's all for today.